Ms. Carter, may I ask you first to give your assessment of these latest developments in Iran?
I don't know anything more than anybody else knows about Iran, the messages that come out of the country. I know that we have worked around the clock. The president has never stopped from day one when the hostages were taken. And I think we just have to be patient and pray for them to come home soon. They do have a government. They are going through the process. I heard the same things you heard about the Marjories not voting for them on anything. They didn't have a quorum, but that's all I know about it.
Have you talked to the president about the situation there?
Not this morning, no.
You know, the last time I talked to you, you told me that you were, this was back in February, I think, and you said you were quite worried about the president at the time because of the hostage situation, and you said that he really wasn't getting enough sleep, and kind of for the first time in his life, you told me. I wonder, now he's campaigning. He was not campaigning in those days. How's he getting along these days?
Fine, fine. He still worries about the hostages. We can be talking about something completely different, and he'll say, and the hostages, and I'll know that it never leaves his mind. But it's difficult to campaign and run the government and do all of those things. But I think he really has done well. He has just been gone a couple of days a week until this last week, of course. And in the process, he has to run the government, take care of the hostage situation. But he is constantly in touch with the White House and with the State Department as he is out campaigning, no matter where he is. And so he's, I think, on top of the situation.
Apparently, Frank Moore made some comments of some kind or the other, your legislative liaison, and the White House had to say those were just not so. I know he's a friend of the family, as it were. Have you all been able to get in touch with him to find out exactly what transpired on that?
No, no. I heard the remarks, but I don't know anything about that. I have not heard Jimmy say anything about that at all.
Do you feel that the hostage issue has been injected into this campaign unfairly?
Well, it's there. I mean, the hostages are in Iran. And so you would just expect it to be brought into the campaign. I think that the president has handled it just right. I wish they had been home earlier, but I don't know anything else he could have done. He tried a rescue mission. We could have done something drastic and cost them their lives. But I think, I was in Vermont a few days ago, and one of the daughters of one of the hostages is actively campaigning for us, working on the staff. I think that the hostage families are thankful for Jimmy Carter's patience and the way he has handled the situation. We have done everything we could to punish the country by freezing their assets and so forth, and let them know that we mean business. We have shown that we are a very strong country. If we had been weak, we would have had to go in and show some force or something. But I think he's handled it just right, and I don't think there is any way anybody can say that he has tried to use it for politics. If he could have gotten them home any single day of these days that they've been gone, he would have brought them home, and I think people know that.
Well, you know, President Ford has said just that, though. Former President Ford, he seems to suggest that the president might try to make some kind of deal for political reasons. Were you surprised to hear that from the former president?
I think that it doesn't matter what he says. The American people trust Jimmy Carter, and they know he's doing the best he can to get them home. There is no way my husband would let the hostages suffer for politics. If we were doing it, if he'd been doing anything like that for politics, he would certainly not have waited until the last few days. He would have done it back in the primaries if he could have gotten them out. So no, there is no possible way that, I think the people in the country know that he's not used it for politics.
I want to move on to something else, but let me just ask you about one other thing, and that is that President Sadat of Egypt, according to press reports today, is trying to signal the president not to tilt toward Iran, and says that will turn off the moderate Arab world if those spare parts are shipped to Iran. Would you have any thoughts about that?
I know that we will not do anything to harm the integrity of our country. We will not make any concessions. Jimmy has already said that. He has already said that he would not apologize. He would not make any concessions that would embarrass the country. And I think when, and if we do get them home, the American people will be satisfied with what the president does.
Well, do you feel, Mrs. Carter, that the resolution of this situation is near?
I don't know. I don't know. I hate to get my hopes up because I've had them dashed so many times when you think something was going to happen. So I try to just feel that we're going to get them home, but don't get too encouraged about it right now. And I think that's what the American people need to do. We've heard so many statements from Iran in the past. There is a difference now. There is a government there, and there is a conflict with Iraq. And those things had not happened in the past. So I think we can hope they'll come home. But as far as anything substantive to make us think they might be here imminently, I think is just not there.
Let me ask you about the campaign. Mrs. Reagan says she deeply resents the charges that your husband has made about her husband. Her quote was the other day that he should be ashamed of himself.
Well, I think we all get defensive about our husbands. I'm sure she gets very defensive. I get defensive about some of the things that I've said. But Jimmy Carter has not run a bad campaign. I think it's been a good campaign. He has pointed out the statements of Governor Reagan. Every time he's ever said anything about him, he has had documented quotations to prove that what he was saying was correct. And that's legitimate in a campaign. It's not Jimmy Carter's fault that Governor Reagan said nuclear non-proliferation is none of our business, for instance. And I think the American people need to have these things pointed out to them. So I think he's run a good campaign. The thing that he has done also is, from the very beginning, even last summer, before the campaign started, he would sit down and write his speeches with his record, which he is very proud of, and he has a great record, which I think the American people are beginning to see now, and his accomplishments and his plans for the future of our country. And in all of his speeches, that's what he says. And that's what I wish the American people could hear. I think they're beginning to see it. The debates helped to show the differences between the two and show that Jimmy Carter has plans for the future and has worked with the problems. And I think Mr. Reagan just doesn't understand. He does not understand the complexity of the problems. It's really easy to criticize, but it's very difficult when you have the responsibility, and Mr. Reagan has not had the responsibility. He has no specific programs. He speaks in generalities, and I think that now is coming across to the American people.
Well, Mrs. Reagan seems to make or try to make the point over and over that President Carter is scaring old people, that he's raising unnecessary fears by suggesting that Governor Reagan is a warmonger. That seems to be one thing that they take great exception to. And also that from time to time when the President mentions that Governor Reagan talked about voluntary Social Security at one point, which she argues that he never said that. Do you feel that, do you resent that as she resents what the President has said about Governor Reagan?
I think it's all in a campaign. And I think the things that my husband, well, I know the things that he says are true. Jimmy Carter didn't start talking about war and peace. Gerald Ford said in 1976, even the Republicans have worried about it. He said Governor Reagan can't start a war, or President Reagan could start a war. That was in 1976. So that issue has been a very pertinent issue for a long time. Whether or not Governor Reagan understood how words like that reverberate around the world. They do, and they frighten our allies. They increase tensions with the Soviet Union. I think that is a legitimate issue. We have documented statements where Governor Reagan said Social Security should be voluntary. He started his career, I guess you say, in politics, traveling around the country speaking against Medicare. He said even in the debate the other night that Social Security should be changed. And he has been against all of the great programs that help people. That's the thing that really bothers me more than anything else. He was against civil rights movement, minimum wage, Medicare, all of the programs that help people. And I've worked with mental health programs for so long. You should see what happened in California to the mental health system. he dismantled it. Trying to save money for the state, he moved the mentally afflicted out of the institutions into the communities where the federal government traditionally cares for them. But there was nothing there in the community. They went into jails, they went into slum areas. They're not over that situation yet. So one of the things that really bothers me about, but I don't think he'll ever have a chance to be president, but one of the things that really bothers me about him is his attitude toward those people who really need help, and it is a legitimate issue.
Let me ask you just kind of a personal question, because I think people really wonder about this, people who are not in public life, and that is when these criticisms are leveled, they go back and forth. Mrs. Reagan is obviously mad. She said she's mad, and she resents. Do you get mad?
I get very mad. I get very mad. Upstairs.
But you don't show it in an interview.
Well, but you get mad, but you understand it. I mean, you expect it. This is a campaign. This is politics. And the Republicans are going to say every possible thing they can to try to make people not like you. And but Jimmy's been in politics since 1962. I imagine Governor Reagan has been in politics that long. He was elected back in the early 60s.
Well, when you get mad upstairs, what do you do upstairs?
I just want to go pinch somebody's, knock heads. But you expect it, and Jimmy Carter has always taught me that you do the best you can, and you don't worry about the criticism. It does not matter what you do. It doesn't matter. I could stay here and pour tea. I'd be a hostess and do nothing else, and I would be criticized. Or I could have one project. It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter what he does. We're going to be criticized. You just have to have confidence. I know that Jimmy Carter's doing the best job he can possibly do, and better than anybody else can do. And so the criticisms just come and go, and you just have to have confidence.
Well, you can have confidence and you can say that, but do you ever get used to it?
Well, I think you'll always get upset about it sometime. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the campaign. So many people have said, Mrs. Carter, fairly or unfairly, that this has not been a high-level campaign, that the candidates have taken the low road. You hear people use words like dismal to describe this campaign. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think the first few weeks, the attention was focused on a few little words taken out of context instead of the overall campaign. Because, as I said, I know how hard Jimmy Carter has worked on his speeches to show what he has done for the country and where he wants us to go into the future. The future is going to be really exciting. Just an exciting time for us. And I've talked with him about this, and he writes it into his speeches, and it didn't come across to the American people, though. Hopefully it is now, because I look forward to the future, and he looks forward to the future. He's laid a good foundation for solving our problems. We have an energy program. We have the president has really strong steps to stabilize the economy. They're working. Things are getting better. And now we can do really exciting things in the next 4 years. People ask me how he's changed. He's become more visionary. He can look more to the future because he's already done these basic things, and the experience has allowed him to do that. I just believe we're going to have a breakthrough in energy. I think it's going to be an exciting time with developing alternative sources for the agriculture community, for instance, with gasohol and biomass. I think the agriculture community is in for an exciting time in helping our country become energy secure. Revitalizing the industries. Jimmy Carter has worked with the steel industry, the coal industry, the automobile industry, the depressed industries in the country for the past 3.5 years, almost 4 years, to see, working with them, with the officials and labor, to see what can be done to help the depressed industries. And now, after these years of study, they're coming up with recommendations, which he's implementing. We're going to revitalize the industry. And I just think the future is going to be very exciting. Those are the kinds of things that we would hope would come forward in the campaign. I think with the debate, we have focused on those some now.
Well, why do you suppose, I'm sorry.